Today on the Fresh Brew Run Club, I'm giving my first impression of the Nike ZoomX Invincible. Welcome back to the Fresh Brew Run Club. My name is Aaron, and today is a day that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. So in the mail yesterday, a box arrived, and that box contained the Nike ZoomX Invincible. So this shoe was originally supposed to come out in the United States in January, and then it got pushed back to February, and now there's some dates floating around, maybe in March, maybe April, maybe later than April. I'm not really sure. This shoe did release globally, so pairs are starting to make their way out into the wild. So quick disclaimer, I work for StockX, which is where I bought these shoes from. Even if I didn't work for StockX, I would highly recommend purchasing running shoes there. You can find all kinds of stuff, including the Nike ZoomX Invincible, even though it hasn't released in the United States yet. I'm not sure when that's gonna be, but if you wanna get it now, check it out on StockX. So my first reaction to these shoes, pulling them out of the box, is, wow, these are chunky. So I thought my current shoes, which is the Nike React Miler, was a chunky shoe, but this really takes the cake, pun intended. It is a pretty big shoe, and you can tell pulling it right out of the box, it is extremely wide. The midsole foam here, and I'll get into that in a second, it is very thick. So a little bit of background on the Invincible. According to Nike, the ZoomX Invincible Run is designed to help reduce injury and make running feel easy. So breaking that sentence down, what I get out of that, and based on what I'm seeing here, this is a shoe for your long runs and for your easy runs. It's not a shoe that you want to wear in a race or for speed workouts or for tempo runs, but rather something that is going to help protect your feet, hopefully prevent injury when you're on those long runs, when you're not trying to set PRs and run super fast, and when you're really just trying to focus on getting in mileage and distance. And again, that makes a lot of sense with all the padding and the cushion and the foam and everything going on with this shoe. It's definitely not a fast shoe per se. And that's something I want to touch on, and I've mentioned this in previous reviews. I'm looking at these shoes just from the perspective of an average runner. I'm not an elite athlete. I'm not a professional runner. I'm not measuring, the weight and the stack height and all the little stats. There are already a lot of videos with very specific information around the technical specs of this shoe, and I highly recommend you check out some of those if that's what you're looking for. I'm just approaching this from a more general perspective. How does it feel? How does it fit? How does it look? How is it going to benefit me as someone looking to just get some miles in at a fairly average pace? I work hard at running, but again, I'm not lining up to win the Boston Marathon this year. Not yet, maybe next year, who knows? So that's the perspective I'm approaching this shoe from. I know there was some criticism around the actual weight of the shoe, but as I mentioned in my Nike React Miler review, which I'll link in the description, a heavy shoe doesn't necessarily faze me, especially when I'm looking for a shoe that's gonna do well on long runs as opposed to be a really fast shoe or a speed workout type of shoe. And I think that's what this shoe is. So just going through kind of my first glance from bottom to top, looking at the outsole here, it's pretty much one piece of rubber with some different rubber on the toe and the heel. I do heel strike, but I actually heel strike on the other side, so I'm not sure how that's going to break down over time. Something to keep an eye on. But it does seem like pretty durable rubber, especially compared to the Nike Pegasus Turbo, which is one of my favorite shoes. That is a very soft rubber. This rubber feels pretty solid. So I'm hoping I'm going to be able to get quite a few miles out of this shoe, and I will eventually do like a 300 or 400 mile review just to kind of give a recap on how everything went with this shoe. But pretty simple construction on the outsole here. The midsole, that is the ZoomX foam, and there's a ton of it. It is thick. It's super squishy. When I first put it on, you definitely feel the ZoomX foam. It's like kind of walking on a cloud almost. But the cool thing about the ZoomX foam is it's very light. So that was one of the things. I know this is a heavier shoe, like statistically, if you weigh this shoe against other shoes, it is technically heavier. But when you first look at it, I imagined before I picked it up, it would be a lot heavier than it actually is because there's just a ton of material and just thickness to it. But the ZoomX foam is so light that it's a little bit surprising when I first picked it up. It's lighter than I expected it to be, and it is just a solid block of foam here, and you can definitely feel it. Looking at the upper, so this is a fly knit upper. It looks a little bit different than some of the more traditional fly knit uppers. It might be a little more tightly knit than some of the uppers I've seen. Very simple swoosh design, which is kind of the direction Nike has gone with a few of their shoes lately. I'm not a huge fan of that. I like the bold swoosh on the side of the shoe. There is a heel clip right here, and it's actually incredible to see how much material goes beyond the actual heel here. It's almost like an inch of just foam and rubber and heel clip past your heel, or where the heel part is right here on the shoe. So it's like a shelf on the back of the shoe, which is very interesting. It'll be interesting to see how this feels on a run. But there is a heel clip. So around the heel, there's tons of padding. In fact, there's padding on the outside, which I thought was an interesting choice. You know, hopefully I won't need to use this padding on the outside, but I guess, you know, my ankles are protected from flying rocks and things like that. But a lot of padding. The inside of the shoe, it's not the softest material. It's a little more of a rigid material on the inside. The tongue is a nice, I actually like the tongue. Nike has been using this very thin tongue in some of their shoes before, but this one is a little bit thicker. There's a little bit of padding in it. I actually like that. I think it helps keep the tongue in place. It's not sliding around on the outside of your foot. So hopefully that's the case with this shoe. The shoelaces are probably like the thickest shoelaces I've ever seen on a Nike shoe, which is pretty interesting. They're very like elastic, but at the same time, like they're thick shoelaces. So like I said, I don't get too much into the technical specs, but the height of the foam underneath the heel is going to kind of make your foot go a little bit like this, hopefully to kind of propel you forward. So it'll be interesting to see how that feels. I don't think I've ever run in a shoe with just this thick of a midsole, especially in the heel area. So very interested to see how that feels. And then just overall, like the design of it, I think I've stared at the shoe so many times on Instagram that I've kind of lost all perception for, does this shoe look cool? Is this shoe really ugly? I think my first impression was kind of like, like it's, you know, it's okay. It's not bad. It's not the coolest looking shoe in the world. It's not the Nike Pegasus Turbo, that's for sure. I think it's kind of grown on me over time. This colorway is okay. I definitely like the bold red and the contrast with the green. And the actual midsole is kind of like a cream looking color. I don't know what the actual official Nike color is called, but it's kind of cream. It's definitely not a white shoe. So I think this shoe is gonna look pretty good after you get a bunch of miles on it. Like you won't really be able to tell it's too dirty. So that's my first impression of this shoe, and none of this really matters until I get out and hit the pavement and really get a sense for what this shoe feels like while I'm actually running. So I'm gonna go for a 4-mile run at about an 8:30 pace, which that pace is gonna be pretty typical of what I'm gonna do. I do expect to run a little bit longer on average in these shoes, but just for the sake of time, I'm gonna run 4 miles and see how I feel. So I'm gonna lace these up and head out. All right, so I am back, and my first initial off the jump reaction is these shoes are just fun to run in. I was pretty impressed. Now I don't want to get too carried away with a first impression. It was just 4 miles. I think you really want to judge a shoe after at least like 100 miles and even further out. So, you know, take this with a grain of salt, but just running in these is like nothing I've ever experienced before. So first of all, I mean, not super shocking, but the foam in this shoe is incredible. Like it is lightweight, but also you feel like your foot is just completely protected from the ground. It's a completely different experience than the React foam that I've been running in the Nike React Miler. This is just like, it's super soft. There's a lot of give to it. It's very responsive. So the thing that I immediately noticed when I started running was there's a roll when you take a step. So I heel strike, so my foot lands right here, as you can see by the slow motion video. But there's this roll where right here, it's just how the shoe is shaped. It kind of like propels you forward, almost like you're running downhill, which I don't know if you know this, but running downhill is actually easier than running on a flat surface or running uphill. So it really is great. Like, you feel like you're being kind of propelled forward using the shoe. It reminds me a lot of the Vaporfly Next Percent. That shoe has a carbon fiber plate, which kind of acts like a spring to kind of spring you forward. There's no carbon fiber plate in this, which does make me a little bit nervous. I don't know how long this roll motion is gonna last if you start to like really break down the foam in the shoe, but for now, I mean, it's awesome. It was hard for me to keep a steady pace because I kept wanting to go faster. So I initially intended to run 8:30 pace. I ended up running, I think, 8:14 pace because there was times where I would just like look at my watch and I'd be running like 8-minute miles or 7:50, and without realizing it, like, it felt really good and it just kind of naturally propelled me forward, and I gained speed doing that. So first impression, I am incredibly impressed with this shoe. It's always good when you break out a new shoe and it feels kind of different and it's something new, and the foam and the rubber and everything is fresh, but this is like a whole new level. This is more than just like the thrill of a new shoe. One of my big concerns about the shoe was the weight, which wasn't really super noticeable. The cushioning that I felt while running the shoe more than made up for the fact that this might be a little bit heavier than your typical trainer. So the weight really wasn't an issue. The actual fit of the shoe was great. So I'm a size 10. I ordered a size 10, which is a little bit risky. Sometimes you want to order a size up just so your foot has enough room. As you run more miles, your foot kind of expands and gets a little bit bigger. This shoe has plenty of space, especially in the toe box, where that really wasn't an issue. So I would recommend getting your actual size. You don't need to size up for this shoe. Looking at the actual wear pattern, so this shoe does have this kind of like cleat design on the bottom, and on each individual cleat there's like little nubs on the cleat. Looking at my shoe after just one run in the area that I heel strike, I have worn those nubs down, which that's the only thing that's a little bit concerning for me, is how long are these gonna last? Like, am I gonna flatten this cleat design pretty quickly, or how durable is that going to be? So definitely something to keep an eye on as I get more miles, and especially just with the way I heel strike. I think the way that this shoe is built, where there's just so much bulk on the heel, it kind of exaggerates the actual heel strike. Like, I was looking at the slow motion video that I shot earlier. It seems like I'm heel striking a little bit more than I typically do, which is, I don't know if it's a result of the shoe or just sometimes when I'm trying to like film these videos and do like slow motion, I'm overthinking my stride and I end up like overstriding. So I don't know if that's the case, but definitely something to keep an eye on as this wears down. The other, I don't know if it's a complaint, it's maybe just an observation. This is a very loud shoe. It has this like, I don't even, like a thud, thwack. I don't really know how to describe it. But I think it's a mix of the actual foam and then kind of this cleat design, which almost like, maybe the sound is like echoing off of these little cleats and making a very loud shoe. So if you're looking for a shoe that you can kind of sneak around in and no one can hear you running, probably not the shoe for you. It's pretty loud. So something to think about. So I do care about the look of the shoe, and one of the things I pay attention to is, did this shoe turn any heads when I was running? And the answer is no. I don't think this shoe is going to turn heads. It's pretty nondescript. So I've had a little bit of knee soreness, so I've been taking some preventative measures, just icing my knees and doing some stretches and using a foam roller just to make sure I'm staying in front of that. When I was running in these, and it could be just purely anecdotal, small sample size, but I didn't feel any knee pain. And again, I don't want to get too carried away. It's just 1 4-mile run, but I didn't feel any knee pain, which is, kind of a little bit how this shoe is marketed as, like a kind of injury prevention type shoe. So that's something that I definitely will keep an eye on. But first run, it didn't hurt me, which is always a good thing for a first run in a new running shoe. So those are my overall impressions. Again, this is just one run, and I can't emphasize that enough. I will definitely do a follow-up video at 100 miles, and hopefully I'll do one even further out. But just after one run, I am incredibly impressed. It is unlike anything I've ever run in. It is cushioned, it is comfortable, my knees feel great. It actually made me run faster than I wanted to or intended to. So one run down and I'm very impressed. But again, the real mark of a good shoe is how does it hold up after extended mileage. So I'll definitely be updating my social media channels as I run in these. Be sure to follow Fresh Brew RC on Instagram, Twitter, and now TikTok. Again, I will be back with a more thorough review after I've run a lot more miles, but so far so good. If you have any questions, anything specific, feel free to ask me in the comments. Happy to answer what I can. But again, very impressed with these so far, and just looking forward to honestly running more miles in these. These have me excited to hit the road for the next run. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you soon.